Hey everybody, welcome to Dad's Den of Pop Culture. It's Alpha Flight Monday. We are reading through and reviewing Alpha Flight number 28, John Byrne's last issue of Alpha Flight, ending his run on the characters he created, and the book which he honestly didn't really want to do, although I think he did well with it. It was somewhat of an experimental book and an experimental run, given what the characters were put through, which you really couldn't at that time have done as easily with a lot of more established characters. So I think it was interesting, and I think it's really sort of a harbinger of things to come for Marvel as we kind of move from the Bronze Age into what some people call the Copper Age or the modern age of comics, where characters are a lot less sacrosanct, go through major changes, the dying and coming back happened in the past, but at any rate. So let's take a look. As if Beyonder wasn't bad enough, and I actually feel that way on a few different levels, guess who just dropped in? Guy Gardner? Oh, no. I mean, he's green. He's got the haircut. Secret Wars 2 continues in this issue. Now, full disclosure. I don't like Secret Wars 2. I've read a lot of crossovers. I haven't liked a single one of them, frankly. The whole, I am an alien. What is this thing of which you speak called love? I just don't like it. I didn't find any of it interesting, and I mostly found it to be in the way. And it's going to have an impact in this particular book that I don't honestly think is all that, the word I want, all that healthy or good for the story. Okay. Enough of that. Enough of me complaining about the Beyonder. Let's get on with this. Gloom and doom, or triumph and joy, Alpha Flight fights on in crossover. The place. The sprawling parking lot surrounding the West Edmonton Mall, Alberta, Canada. The people. Members of Omega Flight, villains all, escaping their latest confrontation with Alpha. The time, right now. Perhaps you'd care to run through your plan for us again, Courtney. My understanding was that it was foolproof. We have, for the last time, John Byrne, words and pictures, Keith Williams, inking assist, Andy Yankees colors, Rick Parker, lettering, Denny O'Neill, editor, Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief. November 1985. Of course, you could have done better, Wild Child. You could have calculated all the possible permutations, including the arrival of this so-called one from beyond. Okay, hold on. What are they talking about? Well, in an issue of Secret Wars 2 that followed on from Dazzler number 40, and I actually have Dazzler number 40, and I have the Hulk issue that this crosses over with, and I just didn't want to pull all the long boxes out to get to it. So, forgive me. But in this issue, the Beyonder is sort of experiencing love. He flashes into the West Edmonton Mall and intervenes in what's going on. And I think we'll get to it as we go through here. But to me, it's sort of like, it's a real mulligan. It's just, oh my God, how are they going to save Talisman? Well, turns out not to be that hard. I'm not a fan. Not a fan of any of that. I got to be honest. But so that's what he's talking about with the Beyonder arriving. And so Omega starts arguing amongst themselves. And this car suddenly makes noise, and it looks like it's crushing all on its own. What gives with that car? Of all the crazy, it's collapsing. No, wait a minute. It ain't collapsing. It's changing shape, like something alive. Oh no, he's here. Flashback, Lil, get out in front, form a defensive line. Easy as pie for a guy with my talents. But you sound scared, Courtney. I thought nothing scared you. Oh, one thing does, Flashback. Me. Hiya, Lil. Who's this? Well, we've seen him in some past issues. He is Madison Jeffries, a fairly powerful character when you get right down to it. Doesn't go in for costumes. And he was a member of Gamma Flight who did not join Omega Flight. Jeffries, it is you. Oh, baby, I thought you were dead. You and a lot of other people, Lil. That's the way I wanted it. But I don't kick off so easy. So he appears. Now, he has power over metal and machinery and can basically make things more or less with his mind. If he's got the materials to work with. He helped Roger Box with his new armor. And he's going to be a major part of Alpha Flight moving forward. And here he's turning this car into a robot. So I figured if Alpha Flight was going to kick your butt for what you did, I'd like to be in on it. Like so, sick 'em, Rover. Oh, it has a name. It's Rover. And so Lil tries to takes a shot at this robot, and the robot basically kicks her ass. Lil! So he's a little worried about that. So he and Lil have a little past. Oh, dude, I had one of these watches. I think I've said that before. You should have stayed out of the way, Lil. You may be indestructible, but even you can feel pain if you get hard enough. And believe me, that baby can hit real hard. Tell me about it. Jeffries, why are you here? You never cared spit about Alpha Flight. True. But when Roger Box told me what had happened, I guess I smelled a great big rat. You've never been a bad broad, Lily. Big chip on your shoulder, sure, but not enough to make you go wrong like this. I think she's a really cool character. I like the costume. I don't know if they've done much with her since anyways. So I figured whoever was behind it all had probably messed with your head. You and Flashback and Wild Child. Well, Flashback I don't really know from a hole in the ground. But you and me and Child were all in Gamma Flight together. I figured maybe I should try to get you out of this mess. Courtney, do something. Courtney, help me. So the robot's kicking everybody's ass. She tries to use one of the future selves of Flashback. I say she again. It's a robot. It's sort of an it, but it goes by Courtney, so we'll call it a she, I guess. It's all very confusing. Basically tries to use one of his future selves, Flashback, as a shield. What are you doing? Don't crack. No. Oh, no. He's dead. Courtney, you've killed him. But my future men are all me from some period yet to come. You've murdered my future. Well, you can't stay in the heat, stay out of the kitchen. And so now we get this final confrontation between Jeffries and Delphine Courtney. And basically he can control her completely. Kind of like Magneto can, control Wolverine because of the metal. And basically, you killed the real Guardian, Courtney. Killed a man I respected, a man I liked. Now you're going to pay. Basically, rips all of the mechanical innards out through the mouth. Kind of gruesome. I mean, it is a robot, but still kind of gruesome. Lil, he turned him inside out. Not him, child. It. Courtney was a robot. You knew that. And now it's scrap metal. Just like will happen to any machine that starts thinking it's one up on us humans. And what about us, lover? What happens to me and Child and Flashy? Looks like Flashback's going to be busy going crackers for a bit, Lil. And as for the rest of you, sorry, but you're still accomplices to a murder. You got to take the fall. I'm dead. Maybe in a day or a week or an hour. Which it's funny, we all know that we could go at any time, but apparently Flashback didn't really consider it. So he leaves Rover to guard over Omega Flight. And he goes into the mall looking for Alpha. And he finds that, yes, indeed, the Beyonder has saved Talisman. See, you have a potentially interesting story there. And Mr. Deus Ex Machina comes in and just ruins it. Ugh. I'm not even that big of a fan of Secret Wars, to be completely honest, but it's funny. I was at this Star Trek convention once, a long time ago, and there were these two, I'm with my dad. I was a kid, I was a nerd, but I wasn't a nerd. And we hear these two guys talking behind us. And one of them says, Secret Wars 2 was a travesty. And I saw the look on my dad's face like, what the hell are you talking about? And that has stuck with me. And now here I am on the verge of saying Secret Wars 2 was a travesty. Well, I guess I'm a real nerd now. So he saved Talisman, essentially. There's been a lot of tension within the team. Beyonder leaves and goes off to ruin some other comic book. Awesome, but I still don't seem to remember. It is your human side which clouds your memory, Talisman. It seeks to protect your sanity after all that must have happened to you in the void. Snowbird, the void? Yes, it's coming back. Well, it does come back. What happened to her being trapped in the pouch. And she kind of blames her father. And she decks him. Elizabeth, I'm sorry. Save it. I don't want to hear any more of your lies. That's all I ever get from you. Lies, half-truths, and broken promises. You promised to save my mother, and you didn't. You told me to put on this wretched headband, but you didn't tell me it would never come off, that it'd turn me into some kind of mystical freak. And you promised you'd pull me out of the void. You promised, and you let me down again. Elizabeth, there were extenuating circumstances. You too, Heather? I thought you were my friend. How can you take his side? Don't you understand how he's lied to me over and over and over? And this time it almost cost me my sanity. He didn't do it deliberately, Elizabeth. You must know that. But he had to make an instant choice, whom to save first, you or Snowbird. I guess he thought he could do both. But he didn't. And now you're trying to make it all better again. Why don't you all just go away? Talisman, no. And so, great shot. That's too bad that's not like a bigger panel. That could almost be like like a splash page. I love her pose. They all take on that sort of light form as she teleports them back to their new home. As he finishes what he was saying, Talisman, no. What an Alpha Flight? Roger, then we're in Vancouver in our leased facilities. Talisman, she has such power. She has, though I suspect she did not realize it. She could have sent us anywhere, anytime, any place. That's incredible. But where's Snowbird? Narya is not so easy to transport against her will. She will have remained in Edmonton or traveled to a place of her choosing. Michael, you sound terrible. And why should I not, Heather? Everything Elizabeth said was true. I have broken promises to her again and again, and when I have not, I have used her, manipulated her, and though my intentions have ever been for the best, in the end I have treated her no better than one of my mystic tools. So Heather's like, okay, time out for a minute here. We need to debrief. Everybody go relax, take a bath, whatever. She goes to take a bath, like, holy mackerel, everything's spinning out of control. It's Alpha Flight. Everything is always spinning out of control. So she leaves. She does a journal entry. It looks like a tape recorder there. Journal entry 187, continuing. Everything is back to normal, at least what seems to pass for normal in Alpha Flight. I see now that Mac's resurrection was a plot right from the start, a very carefully constructed lie, a very clever lie. It wasn't that clever. It was kind of obvious, to be honest with you. Michael is now my primary concern. When his wife died 15 years ago, it tore the insides out of him. He took 10 years to come out of that abyss. Now this business with Elizabeth seems to be affecting him in very much the same way. I'm worried about him as shaman and as an old and dear friend. And they do go way back. In a lot of ways, Heather is at the center of Alpha Flight, even though it is her husband who kind of created it. But she's not someone who just showed up, because she was married to Mac. She was Elizabeth's babysitter. She was like next door neighbors to Shaman when he was just Dr. Michael II Youngman. She was there as Mac gathered people. She's friends with them. Before Mac's death, Michael was almost as much team leader as guardian. He was the older, wiser head, the sure source of sage counsel we needed to keep our sanity playing superhero. Since the mantle of leadership fell on my shoulders, I've come to depend upon Michael in much the same way, almost without realizing it. I guess she's actually listening to what she recorded. She now adds, if this incident has triggered some kind of emotional regression in Shaman, I'm not certain how we can cope with it. His power is as much sureness of self as it is anything he pulls out of that pouch of his. We've managed to survive the loss of Guardian and Sasquatch, the brief resignation of North Star, the multiple personalities of Aurora. Well, and she kind of forgot about Marina. But if we now lose Shaman, it could prove a devastating blow, for he has been our inner strength, and without him, a power outage. So power goes out as she's doing this. She goes to find out what's going on from Roger, and she's not going to like what she sees, because Walter Lankowski and Roger they've had this little scheme going. She was unaware. Shaman knew about it. They've tapped into this dimensional nexus. They have found a large body that they believe is non-sentient, that they think they can put Walter Lankowski's spirit into, his soul into, so he can have a new body. Roger Box can go back to using the Box armor. So she's like, what? She's not happy because they didn't tell her anything about this, what they were doing. And, maybe they should have. We see Puck, North Star. Jeffries is right over there. He was probably involved in creating this machine. Even if the basic premise is sound, since when are any of you experts on this interdimensional stuff? For all any of you know, you might be on the verge of loosing the great beasts again, or worse. Where the heck is Shaman? If you didn't tell me about this, I'd have thought you'd at least be sure to have him in on it. Dr. Tu Youngman knows what we're doing, Mrs. Hudson, but he's feeling poorly just now, and I knew it. I knew it. Michael's the only one among us with any knowledge in this field, and he's too shaken up to be of help. So you go ahead with it anyway. Well, no, I'm team leader, and I say this is way too dangerous. I want this operation stopped, and I want it stopped now. Too late, Heather. We've already hooked our target. This gadget isn't designed to let go once it's latched on, only to reel him in. But I like that it looks like a reel from like when you're doing the deep sea fishing. But whatever this beastie is we've caught, he seems to have his own ideas on how to play this game. He's just not cooperating. That's him. Box, I'm going to have to go for interface fusion. Get ready to re-emerge with Box. Right. What, Box? What? She's like, what is going on here? Go, Mr. Lankowski. I'm gone. So he sends his spirit through this into whatever it is on the other end. Not very smart, really. As he phases into the Box robot. And he's like, wow, our prize is fighting like Hercules. Mr. Jeffries, boost the power to the rod. Mr. Lankowski should be making contact any second now. I hear you, Boxy. So they're still trying to keep it, under control. For Pete's sake, Jeffries, you're in on this. You've only been with us half a second. Me and Box go back a bit, Mrs. H. I used my transmutator powers to help him rebuild Box. So naturally, he's filled me in on this little plan while you were having your bath. Like the dwarf said, it ain't really as cuckoo as it looks, but some hard scientific principles behind it. So he's kind of trying to help boost the power of this thing. And, they're showing her, look, we found this thing. It's humanoid, and it's got almost no brainwave, perfect for what Lankowski needs. And so they finally pull it through this dimensional nexus. It was our chance to get Mr. Lankowski back, and here he comes. Now, wait a minute, though. Because in between, we're going to go back a little bit here. In between this moment and this moment, we have an issue of the Incredible Hulk. And again, I'm not going to go through that entire issue right here. The crux of it is Hulk is trapped in that dimensional nexus. Bruce Banner wants to die. Walter Lankowski's mind goes into the Hulk. And he realizes that this could mean the death of Bruce Banner. And even though he kind of wants it, he's like, no, man, I can't do that. And Lankowski basically lets his own soul dissipate into that dimensional nexus. So this is still, well, you know. Walter? No, it's the Hulk. Boom, as he basically, looks like he pretty much takes the arm off of the box robot. What has happened to Walter Lankowski? Has Alpha Flight's plan failed? For the soul-searing answer you must not miss, Secret Wars 2, number 4. Go ahead and miss that one. The Incredible Hulk, number 313. I just told you about that issue. Then head straight back here for a bold new direction in Alpha Flight, number 29. Okay, so here we have a little note. Notes at the end of the longest year. I never really expected Alpha Flight to get their own title. When I created them some 6 or 7 years ago now, the only thing I had in mind was creating a bunch of superfolk who could survive going toe-to-toe with the X-Men. And even after fan response hit the ceiling, and it seemed inevitable that my fellow Canadians could not be far from their own title, I didn't give much consideration to how long the book might last. I thought 12 issues would probably be enough to do all the Alpha Flight stories I had floating in the back of my mind. 1 year to say my plea, I guess that's what it's, said my piece, sorry. Establish once and for all who these people are, and look for something else to do. But funnily enough, each story seemed to suggest an aspect of the characters I'd overlooked, something that could become the springboard for another story, and another, and another. So the original 12 issues became 15, then 18, then 24, then 28. 28 issues, and I finally told all the Alpha Flight stories I have to tell. So I leave, at least, the land north of the 49th parallel and head, the land of the north of the 49th parallel and head south to the great desert of the American Southwest and a certain gamma-spawned behemoth for whom I've always had a soft spot in my head and my heart. Next issue, Alpha Flight welcomes aboard Bill Mantlo and Mike Mignola as creative team under the ever-alert eye of editor Carl Potts. And Bill has created a humdinger of a plot for that issue. Almost wish I was drawing it myself. And then, okay, my turn. From Denny O'Neill. Editors always have the last word. I have very little to add to what John said above, except that I've enjoyed working on Alpha Flight, the first group book I've edited, and I think I'll miss a number of things, like having John come into my office once a month and lay a stack of art and copy on my desk and say, here's Alpha Flight. I'll particularly miss Heather. If I existed in the same world as Alpha Flight, I'd undoubtedly fall in love with her. Folks, that was my first comic book crush, so I know what he means. And Puck, who is my kind of hero. And I agree with that 100% too. Sometimes I'd get so involved in reading the Alphans' adventures, I'd forget I was supposed to be editing them. I'd have to remind myself that this is not fun, this is a job, but I could never convince myself. Anyway, it's time to apply my blue pencil to the green-skinned monster hero who's been a Marvel mainstay since 1962. And that'll probably be fun too. And who knows, maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe Heather will make a guest appearance in The Incredible Hulk. Denny. So there we go. We reached the end of John Byrne's run. Not without some controversy. I know a lot of people love the Byrne run, hate Mantlo's run, or love Mantlo's run and really don't like Byrne's run. A lot of people don't like what he put the Alpha characters through. But again, I say that's kind of it was a harbinger of what was to come. It was the book that you could do that with. When you're dealing with major characters in the Avengers, or Fantastic Four, mainstays of the Marvel Universe, you can mess with them a little bit, but eventually things need to go back kind of to what they were. You didn't have that problem with Alpha Flight. These were not established characters. And boy, did John Byrne put them through the ringer. Kills Guardian in number 12. We lose Marina. Many of them think she's gone for good. Puck knows better. Seemed like we were going to lose Talisman. We lose Sasquatch. Snowbird has to rip his heart out, and then his soul travels into the box robot. And now his soul is gone. He is dead. So a pretty high death toll for this team. But we got new characters coming in, a new direction. Mike Mignola, come on. That's the stuff that I started reading. I started collecting with, I believe, number 35. So a few issues from now. And I fell in love with that Alpha Flight. And I fell in love enough to start looking for back issues. And that's when I was a kid with an allowance. I didn't have a lot of money. And the back issues weren't super expensive, but it meant I couldn't buy a new comic book. And I did it anyways. And I would tell you what, when I bought Alpha Flight number 1, I don't know, it was probably like $5 or something at the time. And it was like, oh my God, am I going to spend $5? That's like 5 comic books and some Jolly Ranchers I could get. I'm going to do it. So Mantlo made me a huge Alpha Flight fan. It only was bolstered by going back and reading John Byrne's run. I think he did a fantastic job with the characters and with the storylines. It set up some really interesting things that could come up in future issues. A lot of fertile ground there for telling more stories. So with that, we close the cover on the John Byrne Alpha Flight run with issue number 28. Folks, what did you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Love it, hate it, or any questions. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving it a like. Perhaps you could subscribe. We do Alpha Flight every Monday. We are going to take it all the way to issue 52. And then next year, I'm going to be shifting my Monday comic read-throughs to Justice League International. Give DC a little bit of time in the spotlight. Another comic that I fell in love with back in the day and managed to get a pretty good run on. A long enough run that I can do a good 52 or so issues of it. But we're sticking with Alpha. We do it every Monday. So if you're a fan, you might want to check out those videos and check out the past videos as well. They're still up. And maybe share with a friend if you think somebody else out there that you know might enjoy these. I would really appreciate it. Helps my little channel grow, and it's doing pretty decent at the moment. It's not the biggest channel out there, that's for sure, but I'm having fun, and hopefully you're enjoying these too. So until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another. Have a little bit of fun out there, and I'll see you again, hopefully soon, in Dad's Den of Pop Culture.